I just really want to tee up Sam, our international divisional director, who's going to be running this meeting. And really, really delighted to have team service partner Bethan from Workwell Global, who's going to be doing the presentation for you. Sam, do you want to do the house rules and I'll pass over to you?
Yeah, house rules are, can we please save questions to the end or pop them in the chat, and we'll come back to them at the end. We're setting aside 15 minutes for questions, so that should be plenty of time, and then we avoid duplication or people chipping in halfway through the presentation. Yeah, we'll wrap up towards the end, just to try and prepare for the next couple of sessions on the international division. But other than that, thank you all for attending. Really pleased to have you all here, and fingers crossed we all get some really good takeaways out of the event today. Over to you, Bethan.
Amazing. Thank you both so much. Famous last words. I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully you guys can all see that okay. Yeah. Perfect. Well, thank you for having me. Thank you to Andy and the team and Sam for having me. I'll just quickly introduce myself. It's nice to see some familiar faces and also some faces I'm going to meet later on today as well, which is good. So my name is Bethan. I am one of the US expansion consultants at PGC Group / Workwell Global, and I will explain that in the next couple of slides. It's my job here to support recruitment agencies with their expansion into and across the US. I have worked in the UK contract market for about 5 years at an umbrella company and have been in the US market for nearly 2 years now. So that allows me to be able to support our UK-based clients because I have those expertise not only in the UK market, but now the US market, so we can make some direct comparisons. I can also appreciate how the UK market runs and how that differs to the US as well. So hopefully explain things in a way that's super straightforward, really easy for you to understand, and also giving you all the insights on how to be successful in the US. We have been proudly part of the team network for a couple of years, so some of you might have seen our faces at some of the events and the conferences. And I met with Andy and the team a little while ago just to explore how we can add more value to the members where possible. One thing that we really pride ourselves on as a business is being a true partner to our clients and an extension of your team, and providing as much training and guidance as possible to make sure you are as successful as possible in the US. So we wanted to bring all that together to give you a bit of a snapshot as to how we can support you with your international expansion. So that's what we're going to do today, with obviously a large focus on the US market. Bit of an introduction to begin with on who we are and what we do. What we'll also run through then is why the US market. I've already heard some conversations about potentially wanting to crack the US market, so we'll just look at why we would look at exploring the US market. Where to begin, because I think that is typically the biggest stumbling block for everyone, is like, where on earth do I start? So we'll have a little look at that. We'll then look at how you actually get started, and then we will do a bit of a snapshot of the US Recruitment Academy. Save the best to last. So who we are, PGC, we are the North American division of now Workwell Global. Lots of you will already be familiar with the PGC name, certainly if you've explored the US previously, because we were always very much think US, think PGC. So PGC is a well-known name in the US market. We are a US company, so we were founded in Seattle in the year 2000, and we've been helping recruitment businesses navigate the complexities of the US market for now over 25 years. Our core solution is the employer of record solution, which is fairly similar to the umbrella model in the UK, so it's for the contract space in the US. We are super proud to be the longest serving employer of record solution, and essentially we become the legal employer of your contract placements in the US. So you can do what you do best, the recruitment side of things, and we will take on any employment tax, administration, compliance elements. We will allow you to place contractors in any state of America and also any province or territory of Canada, if that's on the roadmap as well. So our solution is very much a turnkey solution, which allows you, as I say, to focus on running your business, placing workers, doing what you do best, and we will handle the rest from there as your compliance partner. We are HQ'd in the amazing Austin, Texas. We have operational hubs in New York and team working remotely across the US, so from New York to Nevada, so we can cover all time zones. That's super important to note because it will be our US team who look after your contractors day to day from a HR perspective. So nice to have team local. The majority of our division of the business are US based, but I am of course based here in the UK from our Liverpool office. We built this office on the Albert Dock about 5 years ago, and that was to ensure that we can efficiently support our UK-based clients. And we will all know and have heard in the market there are a lot of UK-based recruitment agencies now tapping into the US market. So it made sense for us to have a presence here in the UK as well. The rebranding journey. So you've heard Workwell and you've heard PGC. So PGC are the experts in North America. And as I say, we have been for over 25 years. In April 2025, we went through a financial merger with Workwell Group, who are, of course, a huge name in the UK market. Workwell had an amazing international division already, but didn't really have those deep-rooted expertise in North America. So it made sense for us to join forces and become an international powerhouse. So we can now support our agencies in 160 plus countries worldwide. So if anything else internationally comes up, we can absolutely support. But we still like to keep those deep expertise within the team. So anything outside of the US will be one of my colleagues. Anything North America will sit with the North American division. So that's us, who we are, and also just to explain the PGC and Workwell Global, we are doing a slow transition over. It is very much Workwell Global at the moment, but you might hear us slip into PGC, just out of habit more than anything. To begin with then, we will start looking at the US market and the global staffing industry revenue for 2024. In 2024, the US staffing industry generated over $654 billion in revenue globally. Now, of that, 54% was generated by just 3 countries alone: the US, the UK, and Japan, 3 massive markets. The US has and always will absolutely dominate the market with a huge 29% market share, which is actually more than the next top 7 countries combined. So if you were to add UK, Japan, Canada, Sweden, Belgium, India, and France together, the US still takes top spot. So it's absolutely huge and growing. Definitely a place to be if you're wanting to diversify your business or branch out from the UK market. If we do a side-by-side comparison of the UK market, where I think the majority of you will probably do business currently, the US market does have less recruitment agencies than the UK, which is phenomenal when you consider the sizes. It's about 15% less recruitment agencies. And as we know in the UK, there are recruitment agencies springing up all the time. Andy, I think you did a post on LinkedIn a few months back, actually, and I think it was 4,000 new recruitment agencies registered on Companies House in the UK year to date. So it is. What is it now?
Over 5,000.
There you go. There you go.
Most of them as well.
And I think I read a stat as well that only 16% of the UK's recruitment agencies were in existence before 2008. So I don't know what that works out, like 150 new agencies a month or something, which is absolutely crazy. The US, however, has about 15% less recruitment agencies than we have in the UK. When we look at those market shares, 29% for the US and just 8% for the UK. And when we look at the dollar values for that, it's about $184 billion for the US versus about $50 billion for, $50 billion is still amazing, $50 billion for the UK. Margins is typically where everybody's eyes light up, and margins sit between sort of 25 to 45% in the US. Caveat, that is very much industry dependent. We do see on average margins sitting about 30%, but it will vary industry to industry, versus the UK where it can be, 15 to 20% margins. I have some clients that are working 30% margins in the US and single figure margins in the UK. So it is considerably different. The market opportunity is huge. So we've just mentioned it is a far less saturated market. There are less agencies, more people. Recruiters are seen as professionals and essential for business growth. I know in the UK, we unfortunately don't always get that same reception from our clients, but I can assure you in the US, they do really value and appreciate the use of recruitment agencies. So we mentioned they do have less recruitment agencies. those in the US are typically much bigger in size than we see in the UK. However, they are often quite generalist, so they'll work multiple roles in multiple industries, which is why you'll hear a lot about us talking about going niche in the US, because that's how you're going to stand out. And we'll talk about it in the next few slides as well. So if you're UK based, also don't shy away from the fact that you are UK based. When we speak to US based clients, they always talk about how they love working with UK based recruitment agencies. They appreciate that you are typically working in a much more saturated market on much lower margins, and therefore you are typically much faster. You typically have much better rec tech and probably work that little bit harder because we have to in the UK. So don't shy away from the fact that you are UK based, because your US clients will still love that. Higher salaries and higher margins. We just looked at the margins, but salaries are also much higher. So they can be double, if not triple, what you can expect to see in the UK. So one deal in the US could be the value as 2 or 3 deals in the UK. You can work retained or exclusive. This is a big topic of conversation and something Simon and I were talking about when we met a couple of weeks ago. We are seeing lots of agencies diversifying their product offering to fit the demand in the US. There's been a 6% growth in retained deals in the US, and we usually see like a third split across that. When I was talking to Simon, he said that he'd recently watched a podcast about a UK agency going over to the US. They were contingent only in the UK, but in the US, the clients were asking for retained, and they started to sell retained, and their speed of hire was 33% faster than the US company. So it is something that we are seeing a lot, and it is highly requested. It's a much more mature market. When you are looking to go into the US, it is imperative that you build a strategy, and that's something that we can support you with. And we have lots of graphics like this. If you follow us on LinkedIn, we are often posting graphics on recruitment revenue per state, industry specific, state specific insights. So not only are you going to select your industry and your specialism, your niche, but you're also going to want to look at what state you're going to work in. Now, each state operates completely differently from a tax perspective. Employment laws will be different. Culture is different, cost of living is different, your business development approach state to state is going to be vastly different as well. So treat it like 50 different countries when you are approaching the US, which again is why we talk about finding your niche. Now, this map shows the highest recruitment revenue per state. So the lighter the state, the higher the revenue is in billions. The top box is the states in the perm market, and then the bottom is contract. And there's a slight difference between the two of those, just because when you're doing perm placement, the revenue is accounted towards the state where the client is. But obviously with contract, your workers can be based across the state. So it's always based on where that contractor is located. So we do see a slight difference between the two, but largely there or thereabouts. And some of them are not surprising. New York, as an example, goes without saying. California takes top spot for both. California is an amazing state to be working in. It has the largest economy in the US and a higher GDP than Germany. There's lots of large corporations headquartered in California, huge in tech, huge in manufacturing, and there's high demand for skilled professionals in a range of sectors. Now, Texas and Florida have had a real increase in population and an influx in companies and people. So we refer to the Great Southern Migration, which was, of course, during the pandemic when we were all forced to work remotely, work from home. Lots of people sort of reevaluated their working and living conditions and decided that they would move to more tax-friendly states like the likes of Florida and Texas, as opposed to being based in, New York, paying thousands and thousands of dollars for a swanky office or a penthouse apartment. So that caused New York to slip down a couple of spots, and Texas and Florida have crept up. Texas now has more Fortune 500 companies than any other state, so it overtook New York. So we have, over the past few years, seen the states move around quite a lot. So lots of corporations have moved, but also lots of individuals. So if you are working any remote roles, then of course these workers might have moved around a lot over the past couple of years. We also do a lot of industry insights, so we can support you whilst you're building your strategy and do a deep dive on the industry you're working in and where you should dedicate your time and attention. So this map, really high level, shows the areas with the highest temp revenue in a few different popular sectors in the US. So if, for example, you were looking at finance roles, you'd be looking at California, Texas, and Florida. As I say, you can lean upon us for support if you are working in any particular industries and you're not quite sure where to start. We are absolutely more than happy to help you navigate that and pick which states are best for focusing your attention on. So we've mentioned a mix of perm and contract in some of those stats, but one thing that is really important to note is the proportion of contingent workers in the US. You can see there has been steady growth over the past few years, and there is a real strong increase expected over the next couple of years. So currently in the US, about 23% of the working population is a contractor. So nearly 1 in 4 individuals in the US is a contractor. However, there is a prediction that by 2027, it will be 51%. So comfortably 1 in 2 will be a contract worker. Now, I'm a big advocate for perm placements. I think they are, fairly transactional, really great for establishing relationships, and can be very, very high value for you as a business. So do not shy away from perm placements. However, opening yourself up to the contract market gives you a huge competitive advantage and will allow you to grow with the demand of your clients and workers. So that's all the exciting, shiny parts out the way. And often it does seem a little bit too good to be true when we look at some of the stats. One thing that Sam and I spoke about a couple of weeks ago when we met is that it's not always just the shiny parts and the huge margins. So what we do like to do is debunk some myths and some common concerns that we see when we start speaking to agencies. And these are probably things that you've thought about if you have thought about expanding to the US or any other country. So too much admin and compliance burdens. Business development is harder from the UK. We don't understand the worker types and their different benefits, and too much red tape. So things like visas, taxes, worker types. Clients don't take us seriously without a US office, and we don't have the bandwidth to learn a new market. They're all things that we hear over and over again. We are here as your partner to eliminate each and every one of those points. So we're your compliance partner for things like the visas and the red tape, right the way through to me being able to support you with how to win clients, doing BD from the UK, how to position yourself, and ultimately how to be successful. So if you have thought of any one of these things or have been thinking about any one of these things, I am more than happy to chat through them with you just to make sure that we can eliminate them from your thoughts and show you exactly how to do it from the UK. Just finally at the bottom to reiterate some of the stats. So the US staffing industry is projected to be worth about $189.9 billion in 2025. The temporary market is projected to be worth about $177 billion of that. So about 89% of all the revenue generated in the recruitment industry in the US will come from temporary recruitment. Now, those figures are slightly skewed because it does include the cost of employment. But as we said on the last slide, the way that the market is moving is more towards a contingent workforce. So how do we actually get started? And hopefully this answers a couple of the questions that you might have had. Here's an overview of a couple of the things that we recommend and also things that we can support you with. So firstly, building your strategy. What is your niche? What is the why you? Why would they work with you as opposed to any other recruitment agency? And also, what is your long-term goal as a business? Are you doing this from the UK? Would you like to open an office? There's no right or wrong answer for that. It's just your business preference. But the clients that we have seen have the quickest and the biggest success is those that have a very clear and defined strategy and a focus on both area and industry. Work with experts and US specialists. So we have an amazing list of people that you can lean upon. If it's not something we can support with, we absolutely will know somebody that can. For the likes of things like terms of business. So you will absolutely need US terms of business. It is a highly litigious country and you are operating now in a completely different territory. So you will need US centric terms of business and a US dollars bank account. That's not a US bank account, it's just a USD account from typically your existing UK bank or like an FX partner. So they are things you'll need in place. And then you need to build your go-to-market strategy, your value proposition. And you'll do this by, of course, doing your research, not only on the industry, but also the state that you have chosen. And then you'll build your virtual shop front. So things like your LinkedIn, does that speak to the US market? Maybe you'll change your location. Your website, you might have a US address and a US phone number, and that all builds those really strong buy-in signals to your now new clients in the US. And then finally, training, which is where our recruitment academy comes in so valuable. I just mentioned your long-term goal and whether you are going to stay in the UK or put boots on the ground. We have coined the phrase recruit from afar, which is how most of our clients start in the US. Your clients don't mind that you are not local, but they want you to show that you truly understand the market and their expectations, and also the expectations from a worker's perspective. You can recruit from afar very easily with very few barriers to entry. We have created, there's a QR code on screen if everybody wants to scan that with your phone. We have recruited a recruit from afar checklist, which will take you straight to a document which will show you a couple of steps that you might want to take to get started, the likes of US phone numbers, and also some amazing partners that will be able to set these things up for you. So if you are wanting to start work through some of these, scan that QR code and it'll take you straight to the checklist. Now for the best part, the US Recruitment Academy. So as I say, we have been in the US market for 25 years. We have helped some of the largest names in the industry, the likes of S3, enter and scale in the US market. And we've used those expertise that we've built over 25 years to ensure that we can propel you to the highest of heights. We built the Recruitment Academy as your go-to place for helping recruitment agencies take your skills to the next level. Now, breaking into the US market isn't just about recruitment. You all know recruitment. It's not just about the recruitment element. It needs skills, strategy, and a really solid understanding as to how things work over there, not just from a compliance perspective and a worker type perspective, but also how does each state operate? What are the differences? What are the things I need to know about? How do I position myself as a UK-based recruitment agency? How do I position contract over perm? There is so much that goes into it, and that's why we've built the Recruitment Academy. It's all well and good us giving you the actual solution to payroll contractors, but we've got to help you get there, and that's where this comes in. So it is 5 core modules that cover everything that you need to know, and we also run bespoke sessions so we can do deep dives into different areas as well. It is one of the first steps for all our recruitment agencies we work with, all our new clients, and one of the steps we recommend everybody takes. And it is to train not only yourself, but anyone else in your team that is going to touch the US market to make sure that we're all at the same level, well-versed, and a true expert in the US market. As a team member, you all have complimentary spaces onto the Recruitment Academy, which is amazing. It runs once a month and we cover it across 5 days. So 5 modules, we do an hour a day, Monday to Friday. And we do this with recruitment leaders, owners, founders, consultants, operational teams from various different recruitment agencies within the industry. So some of them might be totally new to the US. Some of them might have been in the US for 15 years, but we get everybody together and do the sessions together. So not only will you learn from the Recruitment Academy and the modules themselves, but also everybody else within the sessions too. I do like to pick on people that have done the US market for a little while so that they can share their insights. And every single time I do these cohorts, I take all the new information and put it in the next cohort. So this is ever growing and evolving to make sure that we give you absolutely everything that you need. So what's included? These are the 5 modules. I'll run through them high level, and I can send this through to be shared with everybody after as well. As I say, we run them Monday to Friday. So we'll start on Monday with module 1, which is just an introduction to the US market. So we go through an overview of the market, top states for business, we'll do some of the worker types and some top tips. This module also covers perm. So although you don't need us for perm, we do cover perm within this module so that you have an overview as to what that looks like as well. We then move on to the contract market, so specifically what we refer to as a W-2, which is an employee in the US. And that is your equivalent to like a PAYE umbrella contractor. And we'll go through everything that they are entitled to, all the different aspects that go into it, things like healthcare, which we know are hugely important, and also how you position that to your clients as well. Module 3 talks about risk, and it's how to grow without compromise, how to grow your business without compromising anything from a risk perspective. Now, when we talk about risk in the US, it is more so for those corp to corps, which are a worker type equivalent to limited company contractors in the US. Without getting too into the detail, it is the equivalent to IR35. So those of you that work in the UK market that understand IR35 and understand inside outside, it's your outside IR35 role equivalent for America. And as I say, my knowledge in the UK market just means that when we go through that, we can just do real easy, direct side-by-side comparison to make it as easy to understand and follow as possible. So once we've done Wednesday session, module 3, that's all the sort of compliancy parts out the way. And we then move on to module 4, which is my favorite of the sessions, which is growing a thriving candidate pool. So we'll go through some of the things you can and can't say in the US. There's a lot of things you can't ask during the hiring process. So we'll go through how you build pre-screening questions, where to find candidates, how to get in front of them, the expectations from their side, what they'll ask about 401ks, which is your pensions. So we'll go through a candidate pool and also some amazing success stories that we've seen from people that have started out in the US market with a candidate-led approach. We'll touch upon this in a couple of slides as well. Module 5 then is business development. So this is client perspective. Where do I find clients? How do I win clients? What are they going to ask me? How do I sell myself? How do I position myself as the expert in my field? And your value proposition. So you can see over the 5 modules, we go right the way through from why the US market, all the compliancy points, through to finding candidates, finding clients, placing deals. Without giving you too much information, because I'd like you all to join the Academy, I am just going to pull out a couple of the things that we'll cover throughout some of the sessions, just to give you a bit of a flavour as to what will be included. So within module 1, we'll talk about the importance of a niche, and we've spoken about this quite a lot already. So what's your industry to begin with? What state is thriving for that industry? And I would say go as refined as picking a city within a state rather than just a state. And then we can talk about some ideal client profiles, demographic size, hierarchy. As an example, the US tech contract market is worth roughly 80% of the entire UK recruitment market. So when we talk about going niche, it would be absolutely crazy to say, I'm going to do tech recruitment in the US. That is going to spread you far too thin. You're not going to be an expert in any state or any role. It's just going to be way too broad. So you need to be doing software engineers, which would then likely take you to Austin, Texas. So I'm going to be the expert in software engineers in Austin, Texas, and that will then become your niche. And it is really, really important. And as we mentioned earlier, those based in the US might be quite generalist. So that's going to set you apart. And then your clients know, if I need a software engineer in Austin, Texas, I know exactly who I'm going to call. Part of the module 4, which is that candidate first BD approach, we always talk about starting with candidate first, or that reverse headhunting approach, to be a really proven and successful way to kickstart your expansion into the US. So it's the fastest way to learn about your market. Your candidates will tell you absolutely everything: who's hiring, who's firing, what's the expectations. They are, of course, your product. So building your candidate pool early puts you in a really strong position and flips that dynamic then when you are doing business development and reaching out to your clients. It's a far more attractive proposition once you've built a candidate pool, and you can then prioritize speed. So you can start placing workers really, really fast. You are more likely to work retained or exclusive, and you can agree slightly higher margins if you put yourself in that sort of candidate first position, just because of speed, efficiency. You've already vetted them, pre-screened them, and they're now at your disposal to start placing into those roles. Be proactive and probe goes without saying, and we'll all be doing this second nature, but candidates will share a lot of information, and not only will they share information, but they will also quite happily introduce you to other people. So the power of referrals is really, really important. So definitely probe, be proactive, and ask them to introduce you to colleagues, co-workers, their line manager, their old manager, because they absolutely will do. Then from a business development side of things, so module 5, when we talk through BD, I am by no means a sales trainer. However, this is just based on our experience in the market and speaking to our clients and the endless tips and tricks that I pick up from doing the Recruitment Academy. So I can give you some amazing BD tips and approaches as well. Remember, it's going to vary state by state. So the way in which you do business in New York is going to be vastly different to Miami. New York is very elevator pitch. Give me the stats, give me the figures. I want to, have a really efficient conversation. I'll call you, you don't call me type approach. Whereas we talk about Miami having Miami time, where they are late to a lot of things and they'll turn up with their flip-flops on and they'll want to invite you to a barbecue. And the way in which you approach the two is going to be vastly different. I'm obviously generalizing that. But understanding your business development approach is really, really important. And then when you are breaking into a new market, do you have contacts already? Who's the best person to get in touch with? And can you leverage any current relationships? We can help you with the whole business development side of things as well. Now, I looked at the stats this morning, and we have been running the Recruitment Academy for, I would say, just over 12 months. To date, we have trained over 115 individuals from 70 different agencies, 70 completely different agencies that are either new to the US or already in the US that need to upskill and train their wider team. The feedback that we've had has been unbelievable, and I'll read out some of these. But as I say, a lot of our clients use this as sort of the first step to, okay, we want to break the US market. Let's get everybody trained up. Everybody knows exactly what they're doing. And as I say, we've also had some really large clients that are already based out in the US, but their team of consultants maybe aren't quite as well versed, or everybody's on a slightly different level. So it's like, hey, let's just strip it back, get everyone through the academy, and we're all singing off the same hymn sheet. So just to pull out a couple of them, our recruitment consultant who attended the live sessions of the academy converted one US candidate from perm to contract by selling all the benefits he learned from the recruitment academy. We also can do bespoke training on the perm to contract piece as well. And then our consultant utilized the information from the US Recruitment Academy, which helped him secure his first W2 placement. As a result, he achieved 6 US onboards after completing just 2 modules. I joined the Wednesday session with this guy, and I was like, does anyone have any feedback from yesterday's session? He said, I've got feedback. I've just placed my first candidate. And I was like, this is unbelievable. He'd only ever done perm in the US. By the end of the week, he'd placed 6 contract workers in the US, and as a business it was their first 6 contract workers in the US as well. So you can imagine the praise and the celebration within the cohort, but also everybody else that was on the cohort was so super happy for him. But then he got to come on the Friday and say, this is what I did, this is how I positioned it. He mentioned work-life balance, so I mentioned this, and then everybody just learned from it as well. So we have had unbelievable success from the Recruitment Academy. So we would absolutely love as many people to join the academy as possible, so that everybody is, as I say, trained, but also learning from each other, which I think is really, really important.
What type of contractors were they, Bethan?
They were in tech. And I think they were in Texas. We talk about Texas so often, but they were like software developer type tech roles, and most of them were searching for a perm position, and work-life balance was one thing that one of the guys had mentioned. He had a couple of young kids and he was saying work-life balance. And as part of the academy, we do like a perm versus contract side-by-side comparison. And what's really interesting is there's actually no real benefit to being a perm individual than to be in a contract. And when you look at things like they don't get annual leave or holidays in the US. So if you are perm and you don't get any annual leave, you only get your sick days, there is very little flexibility. Your time off needs to be approved. It's unpaid. Work-life balance was mentioned. He discussed a contract role, and before he knew it, he'd placed him. So it was an unbelievable success story, and one that they absolutely loved as a business, and one we talk about quite a lot. But yeah, he'd done 6 by the end of the week, which is incredible.
That's it.
Amazing. So that is snapshot of the Recruitment Academy. Hopefully enough information to get you excited about the US market and all its potential. And as I say, if you are thinking of anything at the moment where you're not 100% sure, or you think, I've heard that this sounds quite difficult, or I don't quite know how to position this, that is absolutely what we are here for. Anything and everything US related, even if it's perm, please, please, please just ask us the question. And if you would like to learn anything more, you can sit with a member of our expansion team. It'll be myself or one of my colleagues, or you can just join the Recruitment Academy and you can learn from everybody else as well. QR code on screen will take you straight to booking some time with us, and we can just chat through what your plans look like. They might be super long term. You might just not be sure for the time being, but we can talk through exactly what that looks like and all the steps that you need to take. Does anybody have any questions?
There's got to be some out there. I don't believe that nobody's got questions, unless you've answered them all, Bethan. Maybe.
We've got Kim obviously on the call as well. Kim Diaz from 3R. Kim, do you want to unmute and talk about how you're supporting Workwell Global with 3R?
Of course, yeah. Hello, everybody. Thanks, Bethan. That was a really good presentation. An awful lot of detail there, which is really, really valuable to any recruitment business looking to, get started and really kick things off seriously in the States. I won't take up too much time, but yeah, just to make you aware that you probably would have seen it marketed on LinkedIn, but we've got quite a new launch of an integrated partnership with Workwell Global to support recruitment businesses looking to scale up from a funding capacity. So these guys are definitely the experts from an EOR perspective in supporting and running your contractors compliantly, and we are taking care of the funding aspect of things so you can scale and grow securely and quickly and really go to market competing with any of the big agencies that have big funding capabilities behind them. We have gone as far as integrating our tech as well, and have got a very joined up partnered approach to working with our joint clients. So the tech is integrated so that we're providing a really seamless and smooth service for recruiters that are growing their businesses in the US.
Kim,
That's it in a nutshell.
thank you, Kim. So what position do UK-based companies need to be in order to engage with you guys? Do they have to have so many years, months trading history in the UK? Do they have to have a business plan for expansion to the US? What sort of deliverables are you looking for from them to be able to move things forward?
We are supporting startups and SMEs that are all within a niche sectors. So in typically white collar type business in the States. So and the same in the UK as well. So they could be a startup, and it could be that they're looking to get all of the systems and infrastructure in place to kick it off. Or it could be that they maybe are self-funding and looking to grow further and don't have the cash to do that. It could be that they're with another partner and it's not a very joined up process, and there's a lot of outside administration that needs to be done along the way to keep things ticking over. So people are working with us at varying different stages, dependent on their circumstances, really.
Okay, thank you.
No
And
worries.
and we've also got Sultan Rashid here of Recruitment Revenue. I know that we're certainly looking at collaborating with them on some of our business development in the US.
Mm-hmm.
Sultan, maybe you can give the guys here a quick overview of what your business does and how they might be able to help them expand into overseas markets.
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me all right? Is my mic working? Yeah. Well, yeah, nice to meet you guys. And thank you for the presentation, Bethan. It was really good. And you're spot on. The US is like the place to be right now. What we do is we support recruitment agencies with their BD. So we keep it simple, to be honest. What we do is we book meetings so that you can actually like meet with companies that are struggling with hiring, right? Because we know how to do it well. So what we do is we just provide meetings for recruitment agencies, because I think, recruiters, how to do recruitment in terms of delivery, you're going to be great, right? But recruitment is two businesses in one, right? It's like the delivery side is a business of its own. And then often where they end up losing out is not having enough time to do meaningful BD, right? And also there's like nuances when it comes to actually breaking the US. Like, for example, if you're calling companies in the UK, the average connect rate, right? That's how many people actually pick up the phone. It's between 15 to 25%. In the US, it's only 6%, right? So little things like that is going to affect, your outreach, and just knowing how to do it correctly. It's difficult and it's time consuming. And so what we do, our deliverable, is we book you meetings with companies in the US that need help with their hiring.
Yeah, and I would echo that, certainly, Sultan, what we've noticed with ours. In fact, I'm quite pleased you've said 6%, because our connection rate is currently about 10%, which I thought was appallingly low. But
No,
now you've said that, Quite
Industry
good.
standard is only 6. With good data, you can get 10 to 12. But the US, they get peppered with spam calls. It's very common.
And they use Google receptionists, automated receptionists everywhere. So it can be a bit soul destroying.
And iOS 26 dropped yesterday, so there's going to be another barrel.
Yeah. So I think Greg said he'd like to jump in with a question. Greg Fisher.
Yeah, it's a great presentation. I've always wondered from the US perspective, just the differences with UK. So that was actually really informative for me being out here out west. Also, if I was a traditional US firm, I would be so nervous because I think UK firms come from such a more difficult market too. And I've met a number of UK firms who are doing great out here also. The question I have, I'm curious. I would imagine there's some industries that are very similar in the US to the UK, some that are very different. Are there any niches that you tend to see UK firms transitioning to in the US very effectively? And are there any niches that they tend to struggle with?
Yeah, I would say generally speaking, my advice would be stick to what you know. Anything that you are, it's going to be vastly different when you go UK to US, and you're going to be learning so much more. But the expertise you have in the UK are still transferable for the US, although you'll be learning so much more. So my recommendation would be stick to what you know. However, I do absolutely have agencies that do one thing in the UK and go, hey, I'm going to do something totally different in the US. Like, what can I pick? I would say the industries we see the most that are absolutely thriving, tech, of course, and life sciences, we see lots. I would say success is usually based on the individual, the strategy, the proposition, and how you position yourself, your go-to-market strategy. So even those that are doing the more tricky of industries, I would say if you can crack your positioning, you are going to put yourself in such a great space anyway. There are, of course, some that are really, really difficult. So, for example, healthcare is a really tough industry. It's the largest of the recruitment industries in the US, but the toughest to crack. And that's because they just have so many more hoops to jump through. You need a US entity, and you need these things in place and specific insurances, and it just makes it that little bit more tough. But I would say, if you're doing like your classic sort of tech roles, life sciences, providing your positioning is strong, I think you can be successful. But I would definitely say recommendation would be, if you're an expert in something in the UK, take that over to the US, because there will be so much that you know. And even when you're doing your sort of like credibility and testimonials, you can still talk about your UK credibility. This is everything we've built in the UK. I'm an expert in this in the UK, and I'm now taking this over to the States.
That makes sense. I would imagine, healthcare would be tough because the funding model and the way it works with the government is so different. I come from the healthcare space, and there's like so much very specific knowledge on how it all works here.
Absolutely. And they do typically request that the agency has a US entity. I think James had popped a question in the chat actually about, do I need a US entity or a separate legal entity? You don't need a US entity to do business in the US. So put everything through your existing UK entity. However, some clients, and certainly particular industries like healthcare, will request that they're working with an agency who have a US entity set up. For the most part, when you recruit from afar, you don't need your US entity, just run everything through the UK.
Thank you, Bethan. So any other questions from anyone else, either about the market itself, or how to get started, or the academy? When is the next session running? When does it next start, Bethan?
So it's typically the last week of every month. However, week commencing the 29th of September, we have loads of different days on. We're here, there, and everywhere. So it's been pushed back to week commencing the 6th of October. So it'll be Monday to Friday. The sessions are usually 2:30 till 3:30 every day, and they're hosted over Teams, so you can meet everyone and everyone can chat through there. And then it's typically the last week of every month. So if you are wanting and October doesn't quite work, just bear in mind it's typically the last week, with the exception of Christmas, because I will not be doing it on the 25th of December, but typically the last week of every month. So yeah, if anybody wants to join week commencing the 6th or final week of October, you are absolutely more than welcome to.
Ashley, you have a question.
Hiya. Question is, how big are job boards in the US? And I mean, I'm still getting emails from Resume Library to do trials and things like that. I did used to work in the US quite a few years ago now, to be fair. I think Career Builder was one that was big out there at the time. But how big are they in comparison to the UK? And equally, regarding the sort of strategy of obviously taking a candidate to market to sort of get your first candidate, are there any sort of tried and tested methods, or is it pretty much a bit of work on LinkedIn, or, you know, what are the sort of key starting points on that, I guess, from a candidate perspective in particular?
Amazing. Great question. So firstly, from a job board side of things, job boards are huge and they absolutely do still use job boards. General consensus, because every academy I ask everybody about their job boards, who they use, how much they spend, return on investment. General feedback is the larger job boards, return on investment isn't great. You do have to spend a lot to get a good amount out of it. My recommendation from a job board perspective is to find a niche job board. So if it's a Texas specific job board, or if it's a IT specific job board, it might be an IT and Texas specific job board, go as niche with your job boards as you can. You're obviously then fishing from a much more concentrated pool of candidates. And so generally job boards, the larger ones are, return on investment might be a bit funny. If you can get any free trials, I know lots of people that just jump job board to job board for some free trials. But if you can find anything that is a little bit more niche or bespoke, then that would typically be where people say that they have sort of the best return. LinkedIn will be your best. It will be anyway in the UK, but will definitely be your best friend and the perfect place to find candidates and clients. So we recommend your LinkedIn value proposition being really strong. You know, post about the US market, consider changing your LinkedIn location to somewhere in the US. But yeah, I mean, generally the larger job boards can be quite tough. I think one thing that we see quite a lot in anyone that is based in the US is how you post your jobs plays a massive part, because they have some quite strict rules around like salary transparency and putting like bandings on your jobs. It's a sort of state law rather than a federal law. But some US individuals looking at the jobs, if they don't have like the salary bandings on, might not see it as like a credible listing. So things like that we can chat through, just to make sure that anything that you are putting out there sort of speaks to the US market and looks really strong as well. Sultan, I've just seen that you've raised your hand and I've got a feeling you're going to say something really valuable here.
Thanks.
Oh no, I was actually talking about, I wanted to talk about an earlier point. Apologies.
Oh. So yeah, that is typically what I'd see from a job board perspective. I don't know whether if anybody else on here has had any experience in the US from a job board side of things.
Yeah, LinkedIn, great for white collar jobs.
Yeah.
Indeed works well for very entry level roles for staffing, but not the senior executive ones. I think the big name niche job boards can do well, like if you're in tech, something like Dice. I think the has-been job boards like a Monster or a Career Builder or Recruitment Library, I found were a huge waste of resources.
Yeah, amazing.
That's really helpful. Thank you both. Appreciate it.
I'm sure if you spoke to Shell at Candidate Source, like I know they've got some American job boards that they have deals with, obviously not to the same level that we have them over here, but I was just actually digging into a folder with all of the stuff that she sent me over the last 2.5 years. So I know that I did get one of all the American job boards that she had to deal with, but I can't find it. So you're going to have to, it'll be out of date anyway, Ashley.
No, that's fine. Just more curious though, but thank you. Appreciate that.
Adam, what's your question, please?
Yeah, hi, thanks. Just a quick one for me, really. I mean, I'm a solo recruiter myself, so obviously I only recruit in the UK at the moment. I've done a little bit of recruitment in the US over the years for various different organizations, but never solely recruited in the US. Obviously, you mentioned about potentially changing LinkedIn as a location to a US location, and obviously make your value proposition on LinkedIn more US focused. If you, I suppose from your point of view, I mean, as working with solo recruiters, could you tackle two markets at the same time, or would you say it's best to stick in the UK or solely recruit in the US and leave the UK behind?
Yeah, and it's a question that we get a lot. I must have this question 4 or 5 times every single week, and it is tough one to answer because there isn't really a right or wrong. I would definitely say you can work 2 markets at once, and we have many, many clients tapping into the US market, doing the UK market or European market, and still servicing the US market. We have lots of people that work, 9 till midday doing the UK, and then they sign on for the US in the afternoon. So I would say, yes, you absolutely can do both. From a positioning perspective and like a marketing and visually from a client's perspective, lots of people always say, do I want my marketing, my US, my signatures on my LinkedIn, my signatures on my email to be US, because I've got UK clients I still need to manage and maintain and look after and make sure they're aware that I'm still here. I think there's a sort of a fine line between it. As a preference, as a sort of recommendation, and what we see quite a lot is, if you are still working the UK market, give all your clients a heads up. I'm still here. I'm still your go-to. You're still going to call me for these roles. I'm now tapping into the US market. It's not going to change what I do for you guys in the UK. But then you can start, gradually drip feeding the US into your LinkedIn as an example. Lots of people then do the US and then go, hey, you know what? I'm going to stay in the US and I'm going to leave the UK behind. But I would say lots of people successfully do both markets. It's just time management, certainly as a solo recruiter, doing UK in the morning, US in the afternoon, managing your time, using tools like Calendly to make sure that you are dedicating your time to specific hours in the day where you will do meetings. You're not being called online at 11 o'clock every single evening. You absolutely will to get the deal done, but you can just use loads of tools and techniques just to make sure that you aren't spread too thin.
Okay. I would say as well, Adam, as somebody who's worked the US market for the last 3 years, that my life, even though I try to come online at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and work through till God knows whenever, because we work Pacific side as well. It's really hard to do both markets well. And it's really hard to have that discipline to say, well, okay, I'm going to get all my own personal admin and stuff done in the morning and then only come on because, for example, this morning I was called into a meeting at 10:30, which I wasn't expecting. And I don't, so essentially I've been working now from 10:30, but I'll still work through till late. So I think you just have to be realistic about how much time you've got, how much time you're prepared to put into it. There's lots of people that attempt the US market and for that very reason struggle to make the transition. But I think once you've made a couple of hefty placements US side and you'll think, well, actually, I might as well, shift my hours and be strict with them or move to the US side of things. I think my takeaway from the North American market is just how differently you're perceived as a recruiter. People value the fact that you can bring A players to their team and make a difference in their business. And I think for me, that's the one thing that I always say to people about the US market is just the perception is different. And so, it's entirely up to you, but that's kind of from my experience. I have a UK business, I have a US and Canadian business, but I can only work so many hours in a day before I become thoroughly miserable about the whole work situation, full stop.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. No, brilliant.
You have to give up watching EastEnders and Coronation Street and stuff like that as well.
I don't see telly Monday to Friday.
I'll just have to stop talking to the wife and then it's sorted, isn't it?
Sorry, go on, Sultan, what's your question?
Well, I just wanted to weigh in on what Adam said as well. So obviously we support more than 10 recruitment agencies that just work in the US. Well, not just work in the US, UK and US, right? And what we find is they're not really bothered about if your LinkedIn says London. Americans, what they like is just like if they get a good feeling from you when they speak to you and if they feel like they can form a good relationship with you, that's all they care about. I think stuff like, what location it has on your LinkedIn, ultimately it's not gonna make that much of a difference. You can just put on your website that you're global, you work in the US, and you can add like a US mobile number at the end of your email signatures. But it doesn't really, what we found is that it doesn't really matter that much.
I think the .com is more important on your email and your website. certainly that's what we've found. You know, we'll jump onto meetings with clients and they'll be like, yes, but you're in the UK, and my Canadian consultants, they go, no, I'm not, I'm in Vancouver. So I think
.com is also more it's better for SEO and also good for avoiding spam when you email people.
yeah.
And what about using I don't know if you mentioned this or not, Bethan, but having like a virtual US mobile number or landline? Did you mention that?
Yeah. Yeah, so it is something that we see quite a lot, and again helps with that like virtual shop front presence side of things. What I would say with that, and sort of similar to Sultan's point earlier, is that phone calls are tough in the US. It is very, very tough to get through to people, and I know it's definitely a numbers game and persistency and consistency, but we do recommend setting up, you know, US phone numbers. They look visually great on your signature, on your website, on your LinkedIn. They look amazing. However, phone calls are tough, and I think it's about using that like multi-channel outreach, loads of different ways of communicating with your clients, emails, LinkedIn, the phone, anything else that you can send out to them.
What about WhatsApp?
Yes, they don't use it as much in the US. Typically, anyone in the US that's got WhatsApp is typically because they've got family in the UK, and so they forced to have a WhatsApp. We don't see it much, but text messages go down quite nice with candidates as well. So a lot of the rec tech platforms will allow you to send SMS out, which is just that nice additional touch point when you are doing those like multi-channel outreach communications with both clients and workers.
The thing to remember with text message is you have to have a compliant website to be able to do that. So in the US, they're a lot stricter on who can send text messages. So, and it's really simple to do. It's just a wording change on your website that says, you know, to opt out or to, you know, unsubscribe. It has to be really clear, and then you have to then register to be able to send text messages from a specific number. So there's a little bit of a work involved, but it's possible. But I think that text messaging or WeChat is another way that you can get hold of candidates. But I think generally candidates are easy. It's like an equivalent to WhatsApp.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Greg, what would you say about that in terms of people connecting?
I think to open a conversation with somebody you've never met, texting is hard. There's also, I don't know if it's the case in the UK right now, there's a lot of scams in the US about people getting a text message that says, hey, I'm a recruiter from blah, blah, blah company, and it's a scam. So people are really resistant to cold text messages. However, once you open a relationship with a candidate or with a client, texting is one of the easiest ways to get through and get a quick answer.
If I sent you a text message that said, Greg, it's Sam here. I've been trying to connect with you on the phone. I've sent you an email relating to a new job opportunity. You know, can we arrange a time to connect? Would that feel more real than just a, hey, I'm Sam, a recruiter, call me back or whatever?
Yes, if I saw the LinkedIn message or email or heard the voicemail, but I probably get a scam text message 3 times a week about job opportunities right now. So I would definitely have my guard up.
Oh, okay. That's good advice. Thank you. Okay, so we're over time, but I'd really love it if we could have some ideas in terms of future sessions. So from what you've heard today, from Bethan, is there anything in there that you'd like a deeper dive? Anything around recruiting your own teams overseas or business development? What would be the biggest barriers to you guys exploring overseas markets? Nothing?
Do you know, I mean, I'll back you up on this, Sam. Like, I think if I was back on the tools, this is making me want to do that. So don't tell Simon I said that, but and I know we're recording, but like what an opportunity, like to just do this course with Bethan, either the next course that's coming up, like you've got absolutely nothing to lose and everything to gain on it. And I think what's great about the community within team as well, why don't you get a couple of your friends in the international group and create some accountability buddies with each other and check on each other to see how you're getting on. Obviously, not all of you are going to be successful with it, but Some of you will, some of you will kill it. And it'd be great to have some team members supporting each other and just doing like maybe check-ins every couple of days or check-ins at the end of the week to see what you've done and what you've tried. Like what a great opportunity it is to be in a room like this now with like-minded folks that you've all got the same idea and you're all interested in this. So I think it's an amazing opportunity. Thank you, Bethan, for offering it up.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I really
I'm definitely going to get my team on that, whether they think they know it or not.
That's it. We have people join that, they think they've got it locked down, and then you say something and you can see everybody panicking, thinking, oh, I asked that question, I shouldn't have asked that question. So it is good just to get everybody on the same playing field, and then it just makes it as easy as possible and as compliant as possible, which is the main thing. Yeah,
great. Well, thank you everybody for joining today. Thank you, Lisa, Sultan, I know you've left, and Greg, who've come as guests today. Really helpful that you can add some of your own opinions and advice into the meeting today. Thank you again. As far as ideas for next sessions, please, if you have already left the meeting or if you want to, just put them into the international division group, and then we can make sure that these sessions are as valuable for its members as possible. That's my one ask from everybody who's joined today, is just give us an idea of what you would like these meetings to look like every other month.
And if you'd like a face-to-face meeting, in maybe at the start of 2026, we've got obviously the solo one tomorrow. We've got an engineering and construction meeting happening in November in the Midlands. I'd love to get all of you lot together. I know we've done it before in London, but it's tough for a lot of people to get down to London. But maybe we do one closer to you, Sam, in the Midlands.
Come up north, you'll love it.
But yeah, if you want to do one of those meetings face to face, I'm happy to get that all organised from HQ. So
yeah, I would love to do that. I think, was it Marsh that said that they would host us
we
in
got
Manchester?